Hey there guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Brian. In today's video, we're going to go over some of the projects going on around here at the Knack Shack. Okay, so usually finger pointing Matt at Uncle Salty for some of the projects that he helps me get into. This time around, I'm going to point fingers at Frank from Twisted MacGyver's Trains and Guy from Guy's Trains. All right, so all three of those guys contribute to the train community immensely. Matt's got awesome knowledge of PS1 locomotives and anything West Coast. He's the guy to talk to. Frank and Guy both have awesome channels as well. They have great running sessions on their awesome layouts. So I highly recommend that you check out all three of those guys. All right, so let's start off with Guy. He had stopped by a few weeks ago and dropped off a few more projects for me to look at. He was on his way back up north here for the summer. So let's take a look at those real quick. All right, so the first one here is a GP38 Illinois Central Gulf. It's got a really cool, I guess you'd call that American Freedom paint job on it. And let's see, what are we going to do with this one? I think he mentioned the chain file maybe needed to be updated, that the ditch lights were not working, and maybe some of the other lights, some of the functions. So I'll take a look at that, and we'll get this one back up and running and all cleaned up for him and tuned up and ready to go. All right, now this one here is a Yankee Zephyr, I believe it's called. Guy, correct me if I'm wrong, or anybody else in the comments who might know. Now, this is a very unique train. I think this is one of the early Art Deco trains, and this is just a part of it. There's three other sections to it that look very similar to this. I guess two other sections and then a tail car with the observation on the back. And again, it's really unique. Looks like we got a really interesting smokestack here with 4 outlets. I haven't had this powered up yet, and let's get to why it's here. So Guy had mentioned to me that this was like back last winter when I was working on his Blue Comet. He had mentioned to me that he had this and he was really hopeful to get it back up and running, that apparently there was a short somewhere, and the way that these cars connect up, let me pick this back up again. Should have showed you why I had it up there. So I guess these snap in place, kind of like an ABA unit. You know, it has the 8-pin connector back in here. I guess one of the cars may have a short in it, but there are these little circuit boards that make the connections between the cars. Let's see if I get that in here. I'm looking down on my camera here to make sure I can get that in focus, but it looks like one of the traces here, and this is common on all of these connecting trucks. Looks like this one trace is burnt up, so I'm going to have to take a look at that and see what caused that issue before I go ahead and either replace the circuit boards or just patch them up. Because these can be, we can put wires across them. If the traces are burned up, we can easily solder across them and bridge it back. If not, I believe MTH does have the parts for that, so that would be a good fix for it as well. But first things first is I need to verify where the short is and isolate down to that before we put it all back together and the same thing happens to it. But this will be really interesting to get this up and running. Like I said, there's more cars to go with this. I didn't want to take it all out of the box, and now figured we'd just take a look at the head engine here. And again, really sharp looking loco, interesting look to it. And I'm excited to get this one back together and running and see that on the layout. And I know Guy is too. He's been talking about this one for a while. So either way, we'll get it all fixed up, and you'll have this guy back and running before you know it. All right, so moving on to Frank's trains now. So he brought a couple to me. First off is this AC-12 Cab Forward. You guys may have seen the shorts that I had on that running around. So this came in as a PS1 locomotive, and upgraded to PS3 and put some more add-ons to it, just some little customization features in the cab, and we'll go over those details in a bit. But I powered it up, and he told me this too before he sent it to me. The PS1 it ran, but the sound there was just something wrong with the sound. It was making all kinds of squeaking noises, like squealing noises. Just figured let's just upgrade it to PS3, give it some more features. I tuned up the smoke unit on it, put one of my Knack Shack wicks in there, and as you've seen in the videos, this will smoke you out of the room, Frank. You're gonna love it. Hope you have good ventilation. But anyway, yeah, this turned out really nice. It was a quick turnaround on this one, fairly straightforward. Again, gutted it, had a little short video on that, just showing me tearing it apart. Quick tear down on it, clean up, re-greased everything, put some new tires on it as well, then installed the PS3 upgrade kit. All right, so some other things that I did to this locomotive while it was here was we took out I guess they were little clear plastic reflector pieces that were in the front here for the marker lights, and replaced those with LEDs, and now those are functional. The headlight didn't work either. That was an incandescent with the PS1 system. Actually, it's an incandescent with the PS3 upgrade kit as well, but either way, that works now. I put in we'll zoom in on this in a little bit. We'll get a closer look, but I installed a diamond plate flooring in there, a little driver, just to add a little bit more detail to the interior on it. Now on the tender, I drilled out the cast-in lanterns so that we can fit that with LEDs, fit both of those with LEDs rather, and also it didn't have a rear backup light. So I drilled that out and added that as well. All right guys, let's get a close-up of this. Show you some of the details. I'm going to try to get in there. We got the diamond plate flooring added. Front LED marker lights. And of course we got the deuter in there.
Steam's real good.
Added some new tires on it. Cleaned it up. New grease to the gearbox. Of course, upgrade to the smoke unit. And on the back side here, added the red LEDs, so I had to drill out the castings for those lanterns to fit those, and also had to drill out the hole for the rear tender light. All right. Frank, you're going to have a lot of fun running this one around. Again, it's going to smoke you out of the room, buddy, but you're going to love it. All right, now the second one that Frank sent me was a Rail King Big Boy. Brand spanking new, never run before. All right, so you're thinking to yourself, why in the heck would Frank send this crazy guy a brand new Big Boy, never run before? Well, let's get to it. All right, so again, this is a Rail King version. Now, I've worked on these before in the past, and I'll tell you what, these are phenomenal locomotives. You may have your own opinion on it, but when it comes down to what you're paying and what you're getting, this is a fantastic locomotive. It's not as scale as the Vision Lines, and I can put my Vision Line side by side with this, and obviously, yeah, you can see that. But I'll tell you what, when this thing is going around like an 072, you have very minimal overhang on the front end. It appears to be a little bit more prototypical than our scale versions, our Vision Lines, our Premier models, things like that. Because I have both. I have the Premier, I have the Vision Lines, and I've run these, and I was really impressed with the way that this appeared going around the curves. Now I have 072s all the way out to 090 something, and even my scale Premiers and Vision Lines on the 090s, it just still, you get that overhang. It just doesn't have that prototypical look, if that's what you're going for. But it's just something that I noticed right off the bat when I had worked on one of these before and ran it. I was really impressed with just how it looked on the tracks. So again, you may have your own opinions. I get it. Everybody's got their feelings about scale versus not scale. But to me, I own both of them, I was thoroughly impressed with this. So if you see one of these things and you're in the market for something that looks scale going around a curve, you don't need all the bells and whistles of a Vision Line, something like that, or obviously they cost a lot more. This is a really great locomotive. So let's get into what we're going to do to it while it's here. All right, so let's get into this now. On the front, this does not have the number boards, so we're going to add number boards to it. It does have the lanterns up front. I believe these might come up in amber, if I'm not mistaken. So what we're going to do is we're going to change those out to green. And on the rear, it doesn't have the rear marker lights. It does have a backup light, so we're going to put the rear marker lights on it too, the lanterns with the red LEDs in there as well. Okay, so that's all we're going to do to this guy. Again, great looking locomotive, especially for the price. If you're in the market for a big boy and you don't have the 072, or you want something that looks a little bit more prototypical going around an 072, I would highly recommend this. There's lots of videos on this. You can check it out, see it in more detail. But again, overall, great locomotive. I've run these before, and it's a really smooth locomotive all around. All right, so now moving into some of my projects, my personal projects. Now we have over here Frankenstein, which is Project GS4. It's been an ongoing project, I'll put it that way. I've made very little progress on it over the past few months. I work on it when I can and when I have the mindset to do it, because this thing is very complex with what I'm trying to do with it. If you recall back in one of the last videos I had done on this one, probably back in December, I had mentioned that I wanted to do some crazy smoke effects on it. So I'm still working on that, and I began working on some plumbing for it and getting the smoke units in. There's these guys right here, and I've got custom control boards that I made for these guys as well. I've got a speaker right in here for the front, and that was the boiler speaker that I had mentioned in the previous video, and that's to complement some of the smoke effects that I'm working on installing into this. But again, this thing's a Frankenstein, and it'll be done at some point in time. But like I said, when I have the mental capacity to work on this one, I come down and work on it, which isn't very often these days. But anyway, that's Project GS4. All right, so moving on to something else that I have not shown before is an MTH Niagara. So I have the Vision Niagara, which is awesome, but I picked this guy up for a decent price. It's a PS2 version. It had some issues, but just cosmetic. I took care of them, and like I said, I got it for a decent price. And what I'm going to do with this, what I intend to do with this, is to upgrade this with PS3. We're going to try to do whistle steam on it. I don't know if I'm going to try to do blow off on this, but I think the one thing I really wanted to do on this one was to give it the water scoop steam effect that Lionel has on the tender. So I have a plan for that, and that'll get plumbed in back in here. And again, it'll be very similar to the Lionel. I intend for it to be very similar to the Lionel water scoop effect, where you push the smoke button and it looks like the water would be splashing up. As these guys ran back in the day, and I think a lot of others, again, you guys correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. I'm not thoroughly up on this knowledge, but I believe that there was, let's see if this one has it. It's got a really small version of it, but there's a small water scoop underneath of the tender, or there was a water scoop underneath the tender of the Niagara that it didn't have to stop to fill up with water. It would actually run through basically a giant pool or a puddle inside the rails of the tracks, and it would scoop up the water. So the smoke back here, the smoke effect simulates the water splashing up and out as the tender goes through that little pool between the rails. So we'll see how that one works out. Like I said, I have a plan for this one. I think this one's a lot easier to do than what I'm trying to do with this GS4. So I'm very confident I'll get this one done. And again, I may do whistle steam on it. I'll see what I have around as far as whistles and how crazy I really want to get with this one. But overall, just going to upgrade this one with the PS3 with the factory board sets that would be issued in a factory PS3 locomotive, not the upgrade kit, and add the water scoop, steam, smoke effect, whatever you want to call it, to the tender on this guy. All right, so I should probably do a video one of these days on explaining the differences between the PS3 upgrade kits, the Steam upgrade kit, and the factory board sets that would come from a factory PS3 delivered directly from MTH. There are differences between the two, and the PS3 Steam upgrade kits are a little limited in what functions you can have in the locomotive boiler shell. So there are differences between the two. And the PS3 upgrade kit is just that. It's a kit designed for anybody to buy and install basic functions into their locomotive that they want to add the DCS control system to. And again, it's a great kit, but it is limited in what you can do. So I use the PS3 factory board sets, which are designed for more functions. So that's what allows me to put the whistle steam in these and more functions up front. Firebox, flicker control, cab light control, marker light control, things like that. So I guess I kind of outlined the differences right there in a nutshell. But I have made mention in some of my other videos about the differences between the boards. But again, it's a lot, and it's very hard to follow, and there are no kits for that. So that's stuff that I do fully custom as far as wire harnesses and connections. And you really have to have a chain file to match your controls, or your wiring has to match what the chain file is designed to control, because you can't change that. That's the programming, the software, and in the files that MTH offers. So there's a lot that goes into adding whistle steam to one of these locomotives that otherwise did not have it. It's not just a simple upgrade kit and some extra wires, because I get a lot of questions on that too, and it's kind of hard to explain over the comments on YouTube, but there's a lot involved with doing the whistle steam and making those making those factory boiler and tender boards match up and work as one. So anyway, I just wanted to give a little bit of a heads up on that. Let's get to the next one over here. All right, so this guy. Now I've been, all right, we don't need that right now. Let's just take them out all together. Actually, I'll leave that one in because it's stuck in pretty good. Anyway, those are my paint stands. So I had a short on this probably a few weeks ago where I just had the crazy idea to, like, let's just paint this because I have this extra Rio Grande paint. If you guys haven't figured it out yet, that's where this thing's going. We're gonna attempt something like this. You guys have seen it before. You're probably sick of it by now, and that's what I'm gonna go for. I have a whole bunch of these shells, these SW8 shells laying around from when I was doing some of the custom Coors SW8s. Sorry, I'm off camera there, guys, but this one right here. So I had made one of these for Matt too. I know he's shown it in some videos here and there, but it was kind of the way, I wanted to repay him for helping me out with this, because he helped me a lot with the Coors train and also with the Rio Grande train, with the information about the paints and just the overall history on these things. So I did make one of those for Matt. So there is a sister of that out there, or brother, whatever you want to call it. There's another one. There's a twin of that out there in this world. But anyway, I had a bunch of those shells lying around because I found them for reasonably cheap prices on the secondhand market. So I had a whole bunch of them just as spares. So this one here, yeah, we're going to try to do a Rio Grande on it. And let's see, just like I did with the big boy back there, I made a little template. So this will be the mountains here. And in the video, I just showed me painting this yellow. I just spray bombed it yellow. And then after that, I put the gray on. I think I had a picture of that in the post, but the gray was only up along the top, which, matched more of the Coors train. And I knew that wasn't really going to be the final paint. I just needed to put some color on it to figure it out and kind of get a better perspective of what I'm trying to do here. And this shell is not very conducive to adding the graphics that I want to add to it. So I sat and stared at it for a while with a couple beers and came up with something like this. So what I'm going to do now is, this being my template, the intent here is to use this to mask off the edges of the mountain. This needs to be yellow in here because that'll get the stripes in there. And then hopefully the stripes, I'll be able to get them over these little contours and nooks and crannies in the shell here, because there are a lot of them, but I've got a technique for that. So, fingers crossed that it actually works. But that's the plan with this one. I have frames for these things as well in trucks, so that should be a pretty easy build as far as the electronics and the mechanical parts. As far as the rest of it goes, it's really just trying to get the paint work down. So again, fingers crossed on that thing turning out okay. But finally, got some decent weather, so I can get outside and get some painting done. And again, this is the automotive grade paint that I'm using. This stuff dries incredibly nicely too in the heat, and you can. I've done multiple paint layers too within an hour, because the paint dries so nicely. It dries to the touch, dries. It cures pretty quickly and allows me to do the multiple layers of paint on that. So anyway, that's where that one's at. Hopefully we'll get that one wrapped up soon, although I'm not on a schedule for any of these things. Frank's and Guy's trains and anybody else's, yeah, I'm on a schedule for that to get those done. But then these other ones are just, when I have time to tinker. All right, so overall, I think that's all I got going on right now as far as these trains go. The layout still looks the same. I have not been motivated to do any kind of scenery updates or anything like that. And again, usually when I do the videos, I'm climbing up here anyway to set the cameras up. So, some of the shorts you'll notice I don't have ballast around the back section of the layout where it goes around the curve over here. And that's mainly because I'm climbing up on the layout to do that. And all that stuff would just crack anyway and it'd be a total mess. But anyway, maybe I'll get motivated to do that one of these days. Back section behind me, nothing done there either. I have plans for it, but just need to find some time. So anyway, let's say we hook up Frank's train and take that for a spin around the layout. Let's get to it. All right, guys, well, that about wraps up this video. I hope you enjoy hearing me ramble about projects going on here at the Knack Shack, seeing Frank's AC-6 run around the layout. I'd also like to give a shout out to all the subscribers. Your support for the channel means everything to me, guys, and I greatly appreciate it. Until next time, thumbs up.